In this demo, I'm going to take my existing applications that I've created, the existing Azure AD app and the .NET Core Console app, and I'm going to use Microsoft Graph to manage the lifecycle of Office 365 groups. And I also want to show you how to provision a Microsoft Teams team from an existing Office 365 group. So this assumes that I've already created the Azure AD application and .NET Console app from the previous demos that I've shown you in this module. I need to edit these to add an additional permission. So what I'm going to do first is come over to the Azure AD Admin Center for my application. So here's my Graph Console app. I'm going to go to the API permissions and I want to add a new permission. And I want to look for graph delegated permission called group.readWrite. There's the groups that are listed and read write all. So I'll go ahead and add that permission and then I'll grant it admin consent as well. And again, a good practice would be to remove all the permissions that we're not using. In this case here, I'm just going to leave it as is just for the case of this demo and just for time's sake. So let's come back over to our application and let's go find the part where we were requesting all of the different permissions that we needed in our app. And I'm looking for, we can get rid of the directory one, and I'm looking for the read write permission. I'm going to scroll up. We're going to get rid of the code that we added earlier for showing a list of all of the groups that I'm owner of. And one thing we're going to need to do here is I'm going to need to add in an additional bit of code. So I'm going to add a using statement for system.threading.tasks. Now, to create a new Office 365 group, I need to submit the new group details to the group's endpoint using an HTTP post request. And to do this, we're going to set up a new method. So what I'm going to do is come down right after our main method, and I'm going to start by adding in a new method here for create group async. Now, when creating a new group, the developer can specify the owners and members of the group using the additional data property on the group object. So what I need to do is I need to locate the IDs of a couple users that I want to assign as owners and members of the group. So I'm going to do this from the Azure AD Admin Center. So I'm going to come over here to the Azure AD Admin Center. I'm going to go to the Users tab, and let's go find a couple users. So we know we have Megan, so that's the current user. I'm going to grab Megan, and I'm going to copy her object ID because I need the unique ID to be able to do this. So I'm going to create a new text file where I can save it. So that's going to be my owner, and then let's add a couple members. So for members, we'll go back to users, and let's add in Adele. So I'll copy Adele. And then I'm also going to want to grab, let's grab Alex. I'll grab his ID as well. Okay, so these are the three users that we're going to end up using for this. Now, let's go back to our app. So come back over here. And what I'm going to do is I want to add in some code here for to create a new, the group. So what I'm going to do inside this method, paste in some code, and it's creating this additional data property first. So what this is doing is that this is the thing that's going to define the users that we want to add to our group, either as members or as users. So I need to go update all these IDs. So what I'll do first is we'll grab Megan, and we'll put Megan's ID as the owner. And then we'll grab Adele. And we'll put her as a member. And then we'll also grab Alex. And we'll put Alex as a member as well. Now, to create the new group, I now need to add a little bit more code. What this new group is going to do is I'm going to pass in the additional data that I want to that I have defined up here for the members and the owner of the group. I'm giving it a description, a name, the kind of a group that I want to create. Notice here I'm making it a unified group. That's required if I want to upsize this to a Microsoft Teams team. I'm setting the mail enabled property to true, the nickname to my first group, and security enabled equal to false. Now the last thing I want to do to this is to actually create the group. And so to do this, I'll add in a line for request new group. And I'll do client.groups.request. And then I'll return the request new group dot add async and pass in the group that we just defined. Now the last step is to call this method. So let's come back up to our main method and we'll call it right after we get the client. So here we're creating a new group, create your group asynchronously. I'm going to wait for it and then I'm going to write the group ID out. So let's build and test our application. I'll do that the same process I've done in the past. I'll paste in the username to authenticate and the password. And what we should see is a new group get created. So we created the group as group ID number 1. So let's see if we can find our group. So I'm going to go back to the browser and let's go to outlook.com. And so over here, we will, in our console, what we'll do is let's look for manage groups. Let's select the all groups tab. And here we can see the group that we just created under my first group. So this was created, it's my first group. We can see the members of it are Megan, Adele, and Alex. I'm the owner of the group. If I switch over to members, we can still see a list of everybody, but you can see that Megan has been flagged as the owner. Now I'm going to show you how to create a Microsoft Teams team from the Office 365 group that I just created in the previous section. So first, to avoid any issues with any duplicate groups, let's go back and let's delete the line where we created our group. So under here, request 1, we'll go ahead and get rid of that. Next up, let's go ahead and add in the following code. What this is going to do is this is going to go find the group that we just created. So we're going to issue a request for the ID of the group, and we're going to filter it where the name equals my first group 01. That's the one that we just created. We're going to get that resulting group back. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is let's add in another method. And what this method is going to do is it's going to teamify a group. So what I'm going to do is create a new instance of a team object, and I have to set some properties here. So member settings, these are some of the settings I want to set, some messaging settings, a couple of settings that I want to set for the team, and then the OData type, I'm setting it equal to null. I'm then going to the actual group that you see here for the group ID, and I'm calling the team endpoint, getting that request. But when I do that, I'm issuing an HTTP post using the team object that I just created a moment ago. So now to execute this, what we'll do is we'll come back up here to the code where we're getting a reference to our group, and I'll say var teamified group is teamify group async, and I'll pass in the client and the result group that's passed in, which is an array, and he has an ID property, so I'll pass that in. And then once I get that result, I'm going to wait. Now the reason I want to wait is because this can take a minute for this to finish. So I'm going to let that process finish, and then once it finishes, I'm going to do a console.writeLine teamified group.result.id. And yet again, let's go build our app, build and run our app. So I'm going to build it. It's going to start running. I'll pass in my username. I'll then pass in the password. And what it's doing now is it's retrieving the group that we had created previously. And then after retrieving it, it then calls the team endpoint to go upsize it to a Microsoft Teams team. And then when that's finished, it spits out the ID that you can see here. Well, let's go see this and make sure that this actually happened. So I'm going to come back to the browser. This time, we'll go to teams.microsoft.com. Went ahead and already recognized that Megan's already signed in, so it signed Megan in. And here we can see our new group that just showed up. So we have our My First group that's showing up with that, with the channel, the default channel that's in there. So in this section, I'm going to delete the Office 365 group that I created in the previous section. So first, again, just like last time, to avoid any issues that we may have, I'm going to go delete our previous request that we made. And I'm going to go add in a new method here that is going to delete our group asynchronously. So there's the group that we're going to find that we want to delete. And actually, I think we deleted too much code because we still want to find we only want to delete the part that teamified it. So we still need to get the group itself. So we'll then put our delete method in here. All right, so there's our delete method where we're going to delete the group asynchronously. Now, to delete the group, what I'll do is I'll just say create a new request. So I'll say var delete task equals delete team async, the method we just defined. I'll pass in a client. The result group is an array, and it's only looking for the ID. And then we'll delete task.wait. So this will delete that group that we just created. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and run this. So do a .NET build run, and then we're going to log in. And then we'll pass in the password. And we didn't output anything, so when the console app finishes, we should be good to go. So let's go back to the browser and let's test this out and make sure that the group is gone. Should be gone from Microsoft Teams. So if I refresh the Teams client, that hasn't happened just yet, so that may take a second for the UI to update. But however, if we come over to our email and I go to a list of all the groups, and I go to all groups, we should see, which we do, or we don't, is that we don't see our group anymore. It's now been deleted. And I can see that if I go over here to the deleted folder, and we can see that I deleted this group just now. And so in this demo, you saw how I modified the existing Azure AD app and the .NET Core console app to manage the lifecycle of an Office 365 group. And you also saw how to provision a Microsoft Teams team from an existing group. Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something. Now remember that this video is part of a series of videos on this Microsoft Learning module. This video is also part of a playlist that includes all the videos that are associated with this module so that you can watch them in order. The playlist and all its included videos are associated with a Microsoft Learning module that includes hands-on lab exercises and additional resources. Check the notes for this video and the associated playlist for more information and where to find the Microsoft Learning module.